The only way you're going to be a success on reselling online is if you never make a mistake. Wait, what? If you believe in that philosophy, this is definitely not the show or the channel for you. Welcome to Prof Sales Mistake Making 101. How was that?
That sounded like we're going to tell people how to make mistakes there at the end, but I got your point.
Okay, so take two. Point being,
she's back. Who cares?
By the way, we have a special guest today, me, and it's not even for the whole show, but I miss saying hello and being here and all that stuff. So there you go. Anyway, we digress. The point of today's show, and probably a lot of what we have to say, oh, wait a minute, who are we? Hi, I'm Just Ask Kaaren.
And I am Prof Sales. Welcome to the channel where we talk about being in business for yourself, being an entrepreneur, selling on e-commerce platforms like eBay and Amazon, and just having a positive community and here in our little corner of the tube of you and on the interweb.
Yes.
I threw in a lot of stuff there.
Yes. And, you know, as always with these shows, we don't just pull them out of thin air. We work really hard to brainstorm and create the outlines that eventually materialize into the shows that come on to this live stream. And the idea for today's show really is, all joking aside, you know, we're not going to grow if we don't make mistakes, right? So we tossed around the idea, you know, how could we continue to help people make suggestions? And what's cool about our list is we came up with 7, put it out there, and then, of course, I came up with some more. So by all means, we hope that we have a live chat going on right now while we're streaming this live. So please chime in with some mistakes that you guys have made as well and help us as we go. And perhaps we'll cover some of the same mistakes you have because we've made a couple, many along the way.
Yes, and if you enjoy the content, hit the like buttons.
That's right, I forgot.
The share and like buttons down below this player. The share button is really easy. It's a little thumbs up, or the like button rather. The share button, it actually generates a link. You can share this video with somebody else who maybe also has made mistakes on eBay and you'd like to share this with them. So it's really simple and we appreciate it.
Well, Beth Ann, my son is a very much an even numbers kind of guy as well. So give us another one and then it'll be 8 mistakes instead of 7. There you go.
Yeah, I like that.
What's like don't step on the crack?
I don't like odd numbers. So Beth counts by 2s.
Yes.
But that's it.
Yes.
Like what time are you going to be there? 1 o'clock? Nope, 2 o'clock. It'd be hard if you didn't use odd numbers in your whole life.
But arguably,
like that,
isn't 1 o'clock an even number? 101 would be an odd number.
Well, even that, you can break up evenly if you divide by, 30 minutes and 30 seconds.
So that we don't just evolve into just total silliness on my day back of half a show today, why don't we just jump right into it, shall we?
We can guarantee you we have made all 7 of these mistakes. Some of them more than once. Yes.
However, one of the points that we want you to, one of the takeaways from this is that we need to learn from them. And one of them in particular, yeah.
Right, I don't like this right here. It's going to have to go back.
Why? Because you have a line across your nose?
Yes. Yes. So there you go.
Whoa.
We had a baker's rack in the shot, and it's creating like a shadow across. Is it still on you? No, I think it's off you. So anyway, we had something taped to it we need to read. So number 1, the first mistake. You want me to do one or you want to do one? I'm sorry.
No, this one will be mine.
Oh, okay.
Because I came up with it. So let's just jump right in. Mistake number 1 is offering free shipping without really looking up how much it would have cost you in advance on a very heavy item. My mistake.
I feel like you had a very specific mistake that you're talking about here.
Okay, so yes, you're an old pro. I'm a noob. And one of the things that I did when I first started on my side, like I've helped you for years, but on my stuff, I have this little thing and I had an item. It was an omelet maker and it was very heavy. And instead of, and we talk about it all the time, weighing it and getting a ballpark of what my potential shipping would be, all I did in comparing comps was I looked at, what have sold recently and what did that look like? What did that landscape look like? And this particular thing was like $30 free shipping. And it happened more than once. So I said, okay, I'll just do that. And it was totally, I didn't even think about it. Probably lazy, definitely not smart on my part. And sure enough, the thing sold and I had to ship it to California, Alaska, somewhere far, far away. And it cost a lot of money. So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, free shipping on heavy items. And like you said, it was a self-similar, right? Or
right.
you looked up the comps, quote unquote. And
right. All I did is I compared comps on it, and I saw that it was a trendy.
Did you lose money on that sale?
No, because it was a regift.
It was a regift. Mm-hmm. So, but still, it was like expensive, and you're like, ah.
Right. So it sold for $30, and I want to say that I had what was the shipping? Do you even remember?
It was a lot.
Yeah, it was like $13 to ship it. It's like something crazy.
Yeah. And I guess the moral of the story there too is, guys.
Is there one?
Well, yeah, because if you want to, I mean, you were doing the right thing and trying to match sort of the market prices. Mm-hmm. But if a particular offer, set of offers would end up in you losing money or making very little profit, that's not a good business decision usually. I mean, it'd be better to wait until maybe those other people sell out. Mm-hmm. And then maybe you can sell yours, to someone who's willing to pay, $10 for the shipping or 12 or whatever it is. And you may have to wait a little longer, but it's still usually a better decision to do that than to ship something and pay a ton of shipping costs. Now, I will say one caveat to that I've noticed lately with some of the older jeans that I've been moving out of my inventory. And I told you this the other day. So I've been selling some of the older jeans down at the rock bottom price is $15 with free shipping, which my cost for that shipping is $6.90. But I've had a couple returns now where people have said, oh, I want to return this. I'm like, great. Not great, but great. And then all of a sudden, a day later, the return is canceled by the buyer. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason they're canceling is they realize it's going to cost them like $7 and something to ship it back. Mm-hmm. It's going to cost them $7 and something to get $15 back. And they're like, well, at this point, I might as well just keep it. It's not even worth going down to the post office or paying for it. So you can do that with some items.
Well, and I felt bad for that one. We got one pair back, and it was a new buyer on eBay, and it cost her almost $10 to send back a $15 pair of jeans.
Yeah, and that's crazy when you think about it. So that is the one benefit sometimes of free shipping that you can get away with. It kind of depends on the item and how much they paid for it. Obviously, if it's a lower cost item like that. Another example might be you sell something for like, $8 or $10. And you pay $3.50 to ship it, and it's going to cost them $4 to ship it back. They might not do it. They might cancel the return. That's happened a few times. So,
but I do have can I add a funny aside? Actually, it's not funny. It's kind of well, anyway. But I did get good feedback on that sale. They were happy with it, and they said it makes great omelets.
So Debbie said, I don't really think that's the reason. I think some buyers are testing the waters to see if you'll send them a refund. That could be, Debbie, but the one buyer in particular was a newer buyer.
Brand new. Mm-hmm.
And she had asked, oh, I love these, and they're so great, but they just don't quite fit. Can I return them? I'm like, yes. And she's like, how do I do it? And I said, you go in your eBay, you find the item, you start a return. And then she did all that. And then the next day, she canceled it. Mm-hmm. So I think in her case, at least, that she realized it's going to cost me half of the item to ship it. So she just probably gave it to somebody else. Stop it, Rob. It's not a Werder Bremen shirt. It's
He always says that.
He always says that.
It's Wahlburgers. It was a present from my trip to New Hampshire last year. So
take it up with Mark and Donnie Wahlberg. I don't know what you want from me. Is there another Wahlberg? Are there 3 of them? I know there's 2 of them.
There's like 10 of them. I think they're Mormons or something.
That was inappropriate. All right, number 2.
And yes, all's well that ends well.
I'm pretty sure they're not.
It's all about the feedback. But, yes, indeed.
So number 2 is selling low dollar profit items. Now, we've talked about this one a lot recently. What do I mean by that? Return on investment when you buy something and sell it means nothing really if you're not putting enough actual dollars into your bank account. Because it takes the same amount of work, right, to list a higher dollar item as it does a lower dollar item. And the example I always give you is like, would you rather sell a bunch of $1 items for $10 Or would you rather sell one $50 item for $100? I'd rather sell the $50 item because that's $50. Mm-hmm. I got to flip a lot of those $10 items to make up for that $150. I got to flip at least 5 of them, right, to make the same amount of money. And I just think that's one of these things where, and we'll talk about that more in a moment, that if you're low dollar profit items, maybe you're making a great return, but the amount of dollars you're making for them becomes very, very low. And we've talked about this with the bin sourcing model. There's other types of clothing sourcing where, you know, even though you're getting items for maybe $1 or $2, if you're only selling for 8 or 9, it just, when you start figuring out a math to time calculation or a profit to time calculation, it doesn't really make sense. I thought you were going to say something.
No, I'm taking it all in.
Yes, they are. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I was pretty sure that was correct.
Yeah, I already smiled at that. I get it.
All right, let's see.
Do you have anything to add there?
No, not really. I mean, I just think you should, no matter what you're selling on eBay or any platform for that matter, if you can't justify the amount of dollars you get out for the time you put in, and there are exceptions. Like I just listed an item for one of my consignment clients, and it was a Lego set. And that Lego set only sells for about $10 to $11 per unit, and that's with free shipping, which doesn't sound very good, right? It's usually first class shipping because it's light. But I had 17 of them. So it was one listing, quantity of 17, I'm done. Am I going to make a lot of money on any one of those? Nope. But every time one sells, I'll just make a few more dollars, and then another one sells, I'll make a few more dollars. And so if you average out over the cost, if you average out over how much I'll make over all of them, it was worth listing them. So that, you know, that's where, you know, you can make an exception. But if you're listing a bunch of one-offs that you don't have in quantity, you know, don't sell low dollar profit items if you really want to make any money at this game, because, you know, and if your sales slow down and you're still buying at that rate, your burn rate for your capital, what you're sourcing, you'll find yourself out of money. It's very easy to do.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother mistake. That's actually another mistake that we didn't even put on the list, right? Is that whole balance and budget and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But on that note.
Well, and one last statement. Amazon seller says, but if you're ramping up FBA, you'll likely have a lot of $10 items. But if you send in 100 of them, the difference is with FBA is 1, I'm not warehousing them. 2, I'm not handling the customer service. 3, they're very, very quick. And 4, they can be processed. And 5, I don't have to very quickly. And 5, I don't have to take photos. So the time to list those 100 items is much faster than if I was listing a bunch of one-offs. Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes. So number 3, and this is not how I originally said it, so it might be a 2-parter, but flipping items with sentimental value is a speed bump hub. And also we wrote sourcing items with sentimental value, like collectibles, Beanie Babies, for example, or items that are no longer in demand. It's easy. Like I think when let's say, just because it says Star Wars, for example, doesn't always mean it's going to be awesome. You know, Beanie Babies kind of hit their mark and then they didn't. Not all of them are still selling for a lot of money.
Right. Most of them aren't.
Right. And I don't know if this is a mistake like that you ever made, but the whole sentimental value thing, like people tend, I think an easy mistake or a trap to fall into is people also add, and aside to that is that people add value, sentimental value to actual value. Like you didn't put that. That's not what that says, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, like that's not.
It's like going to the yard
market
sale.
Market value. That was it. That's what we talked about.
You know, like we've gone to yard sales and people they've had their stuff priced kind of high.
Sure.
And they've said, well, but so-and-so gave this to me after my wedding or after.
Or I got this my first trip to Aruba, or this was when Disneyland had their grand opening. Although that's probably not a good example. But you know what I mean? Like it's just you attach something personal or calendar related or travel related or something to it. And that, like, it's easy to get caught up in that, right?
Right.
So that I think number 3 is kind of a twofold. Like we tend to add value to something because we think it's so. And you really have to be able to separate yourself from that. And you don't have so much of a problem with that. But we've seen it.
Problem.
Yeah. So, but we've seen people like you said, at yard sales or even resellers
Mm-hmm.
that, well, you know, I love it, therefore the world will love it. And that's not always the case. spent a lifetime collecting these furry thingamabobs, and they were, you know, so expensive, and it took this much time. And at the end of the day, all of that doesn't matter. It's market. It's the market that will determine whether your item, sentimental or otherwise, anybody's going to buy it. So I think that's an easy mistake to make. And you have to kind of separate and be black and white on that as much as you can be.
I mean, by definition, sentimental value you can't put a price on it. So don't try to do that when you're listing it because it's not going to have sentimental value for the person who buys it.
I just got a song request.
Yes,
definitely. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. I'm so sorry.
You're good.
But yes, let it go.
All right. What are we on? Number 4?
Yes.
All right. Before we do number 4, though, hit the share button and the like button. The like button.
That's
if
cute.
you're enjoying the video. There's a like button down below, and I feel like we lost some likes. And
I think we kind of.
There's a share button too that'll generate a little post underneath the video. So it lets us know we're doing a good job, and we really appreciate it. Hopefully it lets Google know that we're doing a good job, and somebody else can find this video and maybe get something from it.
Number 4 is a good one for you.
Not verifying multi-quantity, multi-variation listings on eBay. And why do I say that? Because there's a glitch, and it is a glitch. There is no doubt about it in my mind. I've seen enough anecdotal evidence to suggest that when you list something that's got quantity and variations on it, like, all right, I got 10 of this item, and I got 2 of them in blue and 3 of them in red, or these 4 are this size, these 2 are that size. eBay at times relists those items, even the ones that have sold. And you don't know it unless you go in and really peruse that listing every time it comes up for relisting, which is probably what you should do, honestly. Because if you don't do that, I've had one pair of shoes that was a large pair, a size 15, and they sold. And I had one. The next month they sold again, had to cancel the order. The next month they sold again, had to cancel the order. And finally that time I just took down the whole listing, relisted the 3 I had left as their own listing, and just was done with it. But man, I had to disappoint 2 buyers, had to get on the phone with eBay. I mean, this is a true glitch, and there's no doubt I don't know if it hits you on every multi-quantity variant listing, but it's been often enough for me that I now am hypersensitive to that on all of those listings.
Well, and here's the thing. I said it before we even started, that the thing about the mistakes that we make and the lessons that we learn is that we need to learn something from them. And that, like, happens once, shame on you, happens twice, shame on me, whatever. But in that case, we should have been double checking when we relisted
I feel
those
like
things.
You just pointed at me.
But the shoe example that you used, I don't know that was entirely your fault. It probably was, but that one,
I don't know what else.
And you were on the phone with eBay. Like, you called eBay each time. It was a rigmarole, but it got taken care of. There have been other things that we sell in quantity, like replenishable kind of stuff, that when we relist them, that's where we ran into trouble. That was the first thing. And that the first time it ever happened to us happened a couple years ago. Right. And we started talking about it again this morning when you were doing bulk relisting. And when you do that relist and you check like everything or 50 of them in a column to relist everything all at the same time, if that's what you choose to do, you have to then go back and take them out of the unsold category, right? Because otherwise you run the risk of relisting them again somewhere down the line. That was your whole point, right?
Right.
So you just, when you learn that there's a glitch, and I know that it's a big pain in the butt, believe me, but when you learn that there's a glitch that occurs or a potential for error, whether it's yours or someone else's, you need to learn from it, and you probably need to double check. There are myriad things that go awry, go wrong with eBay and the whole technological expanse of its grasp. Man, I'm dropping the words today, aren't I? But the point is, learn from it, and you might have to double check. You might have to go back and
there's a couple people who made a couple comments on this one that said, Krillin said, I never use multi-quantity listing. I don't like the buyer to know I have 10 of them, which is fine. But eBay would rather you make one listing with a quantity. And if you make, you know, and so you can do like what somebody said here. I make I put in my SKU to list another one. This one sells. Well, what I've done as a happy medium is if it's shoes, for instance, shoes are notorious for this. So say you've got one model of shoe, but you've got 4 different sizes. So I will make 4 different listings for that one. And I will put a slightly different photo for each one as the main photo.
That's important. Just
to try to keep eBay from thinking it's all the same item, because it really is the same item. And I will put the quantity under each size that I have. So if I have, you know, 3 size 8s and 2 size 9s and 4 size 10s, that way it's only really one variant on that listing. It's just a quantity count. I don't think this glitch hits quantity as often as it hits the variant one. And the variant one is annoying as well, because when you go into bulk edit, I don't know if you know this part, but when you go into do a bulk edit, let's say you have 20 listings that fall out and one of them is a multi-variant listing, you literally have to go into that listing if you want to say drop price because it didn't sell. You can't do it on the bulk screen. It's actually grayed out because you've got variants within that listing and it wants a separate price for all the variants that are in there, even if it's the same price for each variant. It still doesn't let you do it in the bulk screen. So even there, you got to go into the listing and change it on the bulk screen. It's just another step. It's just kind of annoying. I would rather, guys, look, this is a time thing for me. If I've got 10 of something and I've got it split up into 3 different variants, I'm going to do 3 listings because to me, that is much faster than doing 10 listings. It just is. Now, if it's all the same thing, I'll just do a quantity count anyway. Beth asked if it hits with variant replacement parts. I don't know. Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised. Don't use stock photos because someone may report you. Yeah, for sure. I mean,
and Clarence Ninja brings up a good point. Like stock photos, different people have a different definition of that. And as far as eBay is concerned, a stock photo is what they have on file. So if you're listing something new, you put in the UPC and it comes up and it's a stock photo and you're only going to use those photos, that's grand.
Right.
But I think what Clarence Ninja is talking about here is that a stock photo to me is, or to others as well, is that it could be, you know, Levi's stock photo of their 501. So I think what Clarence Ninja is suggesting here is that, and you please correct me, I know you will, but you can't just go and steal other people's pictures,
right.
Whether they're the manufacturer's pictures or even another seller's pictures, because eventually it will catch up with you.
Sure.
You know, and there's whole different, you know, ethics things surrounding, you know, intellectual property and all that, but just don't use your own dang pictures. That's the point there.
It's you.
Oh, I thought you're saying 5.
I'm saying
I thought
number
you were
5.
like giving
It's
me a
you.
big stop sign.
No.
So number 5 is inaccurate descriptions and or titles. And that's not even like, we put it on here to go beyond like spelling something incorrectly. Because we're usually pretty good about that. Although we did have someone in our Facebook group said that they listed a shirt and forgot the R. So if you put in the wrong description or you call it the wrong thing, like one of the easy mistakes that as jean sellers, I don't know that we did it so much, but seven for all mankind and sevens, SEVENS, are not the same. And we see that so often, right? But
I've seen people put both in their listing title.
Yeah. Well, then that
like they're 2 different brands.
What do you call that? That's something. What do you call it when you put too many? Like if you put
it's keyword spamming.
Spamming, yeah, that thing. That's not allowed. But here's the thing. So if you don't call it the right thing, people looking for your thing aren't going to find it, right? It's not going to come up in searches correctly. It's not going to be at the head of the line or top of the list or whatever, and it's going to hurt you.
Yep, for sure.
Period. I don't know how to.
Kelly said I did a sell similar and forgot to change the title, and that's a real potential danger with sell similar because you're literally copying that listing, so everything on your listing needs to be the same.
Right, and
so that's always a possibility.
Didn't I do that the other day? Like some weird thing came up in something that I did a sell similar, and it was you know, maybe it was it redid the shipping or something.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden it was going anywhere in the world, or I don't even remember. But yes, you have to go back through on a sell similar and make sure that all of your T's and I's are crossed exactly how you would have done it. Otherwise, you're just inheriting whatever that person, for sure, whatever that person that sold the similar item originally sold it and how they sold it.
Number 6, we're almost to the end of the list. And this is one that I have felt strongly about since day one, and I've seen nothing to change my mind on it to this point. Sourcing wide instead of sourcing deep within a niche. I know that there is money in any place you go or any type of sourcing you're doing, and you are going to walk by said money. You're going to walk by things that you could pick up at that price and make a profit on. That's not really... like, that's a flawed premise as a question. The question is not, will you walk by money? The question is it worth walking by? And sometimes the answer is yes, because the time and energy you would need to put into researching it, photographing it, listing, figuring it out, dealing with the shipping, answering questions, whatever, is not worth it. So to me, it's always been better and a better model to find niches that you can sell in. Start with 1 or 2. And these will be things that are maybe prevalent in your area. If you live in a college town, maybe you're able to get books to sell on Amazon FBA. If you're here in Charlotte, you've got a lot of plentiful pre-owned clothing around you at a fairly reasonable price. You know, if you lived in Los Angeles, maybe your thrift stores would have stuff from, you know, some higher end brands and so on that you might find from some of the higher end demographics there. I mean, you've got advantages in your area and disadvantages. And I always say, take advantage of what you can find in your area and learn about, research, figure out. So that way, when you see that item in a store or at a sale or a place, you don't even need to research it a lot of times anymore. After a while, you're going to know what's the quality and what's not. And then you can expand out into other niches from there that make sense. But I always think it's a mistake to just start out sourcing wide on eBay. I think you end up spinning your wheels and spending way too much time in the field not acquiring items when you could be spending that time at home researching things and figuring out what to source.
Well, and it's cute. Kelly, the sock queen of all time, says that she's always said it's best to pick one thing and be really good at that one thing, right? And we say that too all the time. Like, you can either be really good at this one thing or mediocre at a bunch, right? Clarence Ninja echoes that lightweight is as lightweight as possible is better. Well, socks don't weigh a lot, and she's killing it, absolutely killing it at that. And I thought, like, when you were talking about that number, I thought about when I first came into the fold. Arguably, we walk into a Goodwill or a Salvation Army or whatever thrift, you can spend hours there. I know we've done it, but here's the difference. Let's say Kaaren and Jason walk into this Goodwill, and we're not quite jean sellers yet, but we know we want to look at the jeans. And then, we'll dabble over here in the shoes, and then we'll go to hard goods. We've done this before, but here's the difference. If we spend all of that time doing all of the sections, and it's not a criticism, observation, stay with me, people. So we can go from jeans to shoes to hard goods to books to whatever and spend our entire day. Now, what does that translate to when we get back with our big pile of things and we have to list them? Because we haven't niched down, we're adding to our processing time. So we're going to have to do the jeans, and maybe we had some knowledge with jeans before, but now we're going to have to look up this puzzle or this pair of shoes or that. And it's not that it's a bad thing, but we're adding time. And as we evolved, you know, what would have made us more money and higher value for our time was maybe not stop at that one store and spend all day there, but if we're only doing jeans and shoes, which that's at one point what we evolved to, then we're able to go to 5 stores and hone in on the best jeans, the best shoes. Boom, boom, we're out of there, we're on to the next place. And our processing time is less on the back end. So I would say that in that instance, we're more profitable, we're making more money.
Right. And I know people like the quote unquote thrill of the hunt, but I like the thrill of the profit. And I want to be able to find the profits as quickly and as easily and be able to get that profit to me as fast as possible. And any model that will do that, I'm a supporter of. But the going wide model makes that incredibly difficult.
and it can be done. It's just niching down. Your point is, get you there a little quicker.
I think so. I think so.
So you hold up a 5.
You got time?
Yeah, hold up a 5. Number 7. See how we did that? Teamwork. That's what we do. Rock, paper, scissors. Choosing a model that is difficult to scale. And remember, this is 7 mistakes that we think that we made along the way, right? When you do that, and you don't know what you don't know, but when you do that, you don't know how big your business is going to be or that it might become.
Right.
So it's, you finish that one.
Well, you started, with the thought that you don't know how big your business is going to become. So maybe you're doing this to make a few extra bucks. You want to make enough money to go on a vacation. You want to pay some extra bills with it. Who knows? But there might become a time when you decide to take it to another level, right? And you don't really know what the future is going to hold. There might be a time you quit completely. Who knows? My point is you should always have an eye towards scaling a model of business, because it's just as easy to find a model you can scale as it is to find one that's very difficult to scale. And when we started with jeans, and I dabbled around with all these ways to think about scaling it and pushing it forward. I had a 5,000 jean listing challenge one. I was like, what happens if we get to 5,000? And I realized after a point that the time and energy and resources to do that would be massive compared to the return. Not that there wouldn't be a return, not that we couldn't do it, but it just wasn't worth it. And I think that for a lot of people, if you start out with a model that can be scaled, I don't know what the number is, but if you think, if you put a dollar amount on it, and you say, well, I just want to make $500 a month. Let's just say maybe 10x it, think about, could I do this at 10 times this level and still make it work? And you won't know at first, but there's some models that don't make sense because taking that perspective, because they're going to take so much time and energy to get them that, it's not worth it. Like we talked about today, to have scaled to a 5,000 jean business, which by the way would take up a big chunk of this space.
Sure.
We would need 2 employees here nearly full-time, probably full-time, while we were outsourcing wherever. It would have been a massive undertaking to get and to do. And even then, I don't know that the math would have made sense.
Well, and to be fair, let's make it personal here. Your goal was always to do this full-time. And if yours is, and your current model is part-time, that's fine. Just stay with me again. But your goal was always to be full-time. So you couldn't do it, based on that initial, what you were projecting, right? So you had to your plan had to evolve, and
right.
It had to, because it wasn't always going to be extra money. And Euro Extreme points, you see the eBay equals mortgage, food, phone, et cetera, and then the real job, the full-time job, is savings and retirement. And so, see, that's a plan. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, Euro Extremes just said, this is my breakdown. But Euro Extreme, in your case, suppose your job goes away. Suppose you get cut back. Suppose you get laid off. Suppose you get sick and they have to let you go. I mean, so many things can happen to us. So we always want to have contingencies to be able to expand whatever we're doing, or even go in a whole other direction. But I think that a lot of the models that are out there for eBay in the reseller world, specifically in clothing, are not scalable the way they're currently constructed without tremendous amounts of time and energy put into them. And there's just so many other models that are scalable without the same commitment of time and energy and even capital that you don't have to settle for that. You don't have to settle for a model that's not going to be able to get you to the next level or the level above that or the level above that. You can still find a model that will work for that. But you need to think about that early on, because once you get into another one, and that's what I realized with jeans, it's like there's nothing wrong with selling jeans on eBay, and it will absolutely make you money, and it's a great business to have. But scaling it is very difficult. It's very difficult. It's a quite the undertaking. You'd have to be 110% all in. 110% of the time. And it just didn't make sense to me.
Right. And Clarence Ninja brings up a great segue into in suggesting that it sounds like you're rewriting your mission statement.
Yeah.
Yes. There's no midlife crises going on around here. We're just evolving. And there's nothing that says that only the youngins get to evolve. Like life lends itself to evolution as we learn and grow. And this whole idea of, you know, what mistakes have we made, and you're changing your mind and we're growing our business and all this, they're just changes. They're just natural progression of what this business is all about. Like when we first started doing this in some little apartment, you know, could it be argued that it was a mistake thinking that we would only ever work out of an apartment? Like being short-sighted with wherever your business is going to go. I think I said that to you early this morning, like not being open to change is a mistake. Thinking that however you first got into this reselling game is the same exact way you're going to be in 5 years, 10 years, whatever, it's just not accurate. It's not realistic. And I think just about everybody that we know that have been doing this for a long time, they've changed.
They've evolved. Sure.
eBay's evolved. So, you know, I think I came on today just to back you up on that. Like there's no,
well, thank you.
there's no crisis going on. There's not, we're just, I mean, think about it before, because we've gotten a lot of comments you've gotten a lot of comments, you know, I go away for a week and then, you know, the inmates take over the asylum. But a lot of comments came through like, oh, you know, Prof thinks the sky is falling or something. No, we're just tweaking a business model that has to stay in flux. It has to be static. It can't be, you know, you said a year or two ago, you know, I don't want to be the reselling jean guy in 5 years. Right. You know, like we want to, there's things we want to do, and this is just a way to get there.
Yeah. So, and like I said, it's not a knock on the model, or it's not a knock on, you know, that type of selling. It's not at all, but it doesn't make sense for me. So, you know, if you want to sell knickknacks on eBay for, you know, and make $200 a month on it, and you've got a way to do that, and it doesn't require too much time and energy from you, you should do that. You should do that. But if you've ever had any thought about doing it more than just randomly, more than even maybe part-time, figure out a model that you can scale, that's legitimately can be scaled without you having to dive full in. And somebody asked, what percentage of current income would you consider before going full-time? I don't know, Ninja, because you're trading your time for income in, let's say it's in a job, and then you're trading some time for an income in eBay. Can you, I think it comes back to your hourly rate. At what hourly rate, you know, does it make sense for you to take all that time and put it in eBay? And will you be able to scale the amount you get out of it at the same hourly rate, you know, there's no guarantee, but a fairly certain level. And if you can do that, do it. I mean, things are a job and a job security, and then it's going to take care of you. I mean, that is a myth. That's just a myth. Like, I want the security of a job. I'm like, what security? There's no security in a job. You're just working for some other entrepreneur. Well,
and you're giving your security for that entrepreneur. Like you're putting all your eggs in their basket, and businesses go out of business all the time.
Sure. They make mistakes.
Just like eBay may not be forever, your 9 to 5 might not be forever. And you have to have contingencies, and you have to, you know, because if there's one thing that we know, nothing in life is ever certain. And that's on another channel that we reinforce that. But, you know, you have to be able to roll with it. You have to be able to evolve. And the point of this video is make mistakes, but learn from them. Do better. Right?
You gotta go?
Yeah, well, can I give an update real quick? Yep. So I'm going to leave, but you guys are going to post your mistakes and suggestions for how to make them better. What was the lesson that you learned? But I'm sad to report that the boys lost in the state semifinals, and then they ended up playing for third, and they lost there as well. They just didn't seem to show up, and Ben was very frustrated. But a lot of them were there physically, but not there mentally. Some of them didn't even bother to show up and checked out. And that's all part of their evolution, right? Yep. We don't learn how to be productive on a team until we're on one good, bad, or otherwise. We win together, we bleed together, we lose together. But I'm very tan because I was out in the sun for the entire weekend.
So was I.
Oh. But we still love the rugby. We're still doing the rugby. And there you go. And I'm away. So be kind. Rewind. No. Bye.
That was Blockbuster. Bye.
I can't tell anything.
Be safe.
Yep.
All right. So, I take over. Just kidding. Yeah, so Ninja says I'm retirement eligible in 3 years, 50 years old with 25 years of service. I mean, if you can make the math work for, you retiring and doing this on the side, why not? Why wouldn't you? I mean, money's fungible. It doesn't really matter where it comes from, as long as you're making it legally and, morally, I guess, ethically. It doesn't really matter where it comes from. And if it pays for everything you need and provides for all your needs and some of your wants, or maybe all your wants, who cares? If it comes from a job or resale, it doesn't matter. It's just a means to an end. We get so caught up in the way that we get it rather than the actual getting of it and what we're going to use it for. So I think, if you can do that with reselling or being in business for yourself, you should do that. Why not? And you just need to remember the same thing that can happen to you that can happen to a company you work for. Things can go south, business can go south, economies can go south. What worked yesterday won't work tomorrow necessarily, and you've got to be able to adapt and evolve just like any business does. You're a business owner, you're a small business owner, but that doesn't mean it's going to keep working for you the same way it did. So,
bye.
Bye. I have so little stress selling on eBay. It's therapy. Nice. Yeah, that's for sure.
That's where I'm going to therapy.
Yeah, guys. So I hope those tips were helpful too. The 7 tips for mistakes. Like I said, we have made all of them. I'm sure I will continue to make other ones. I don't feel like I make a lot of mistakes selling on eBay, but the ones I've made, I've sort of made repeatedly for a while. So maybe that is a lot of mistakes depending on your perspective, I guess. But what kind of other mistakes have you guys made? And you can leave them in the chat or post after this video. If you're watching it later, I'd love to hear like what your mistakes have been and maybe what you learned from them. I mean, to me, mistakes are only real if you just keep doing them. Initially, you just kind of make an error. It doesn't go your way. You went left when you should have went right. And then you learn from that and you do it differently. But if you don't do it differently, then it's truly a mistake in that sense. Oh, she forgot her phone. I can't even believe that just happened.
Rookie. Mistake.
Mistake. She made a mistake. That's pretty funny. Yeah, so when I was looking back through this list, I think that, a lot of these mistakes sort of starts with the model because that kind of plays into the shipping. It plays into the low dollar profit. It probably not the sentimental value thing, but multi-quantity listing. If you can find those are much easier to list and make money on because you make money every time one sells. Inaccurate description, probably not, but sourcing wide instead of deep. I don't know. I've become very, I guess I've become a little more set in my perspective, not set in my ways, but set in my perspective about some of this stuff as I've gone down this road of reselling. And I feel like a lot of people, including myself, have these self-limiting beliefs about certain things on eBay and reselling that hold them back. And once you let go of those and realize there are different ways, there's a better way to do it, better way to build a mousetrap, that then you can really thrive. But until you do that, it's always going to be very, very hard. And I see people, even people who've been doing this a long time, kind of still doing the same thing over and over. And I just don't understand it. Let's see, a couple other questions or comments here. Starting out, it was definitely with shipping. Yeah. Connie says, I still want to make money on eBay. Retirement income is pretty limited. Right. And I think you can, Connie. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. What is your end What is your end game of scale? What is your vision of arrived in that manner? It's a great question. Well, I'm going to say this. I used to probably would say, all right, when I get to this level or whatever, and you put a number on it, put a number of units, put sales, revenue, profit, I don't know, whatever. As I've kind of gone through this game now for several years, I feel like there is no arriving. You never arrive. You never get there. Because getting there, I know it sounds cliche, guys, and maybe I sound like Gary Vee or something here, but getting there is a trap. It's a trap that you fall into, and the trap you fall into is complacency. That once you have arrived, whatever that is, in any part of your business, you run the real risk of sliding backwards very, very quickly. Like you're never really neutral in this game. You're either growing or you're going back the other direction. And I think a lot of people think, well, if I just sell this many items or I get to this much profit, and then they peg everything to like that number. And once they get to that number, they realize, well, that wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be. And now, they're left feeling unfulfilled because they thought they'd arrived, but in reality, it was just a place in the road on this long journey. And I just truly think that you never really get there because it's just such a trap to fall into. So in terms of scale or what have you, I'm not going to limit myself and say that. Like I will look at other people's results in the sense that if I know they're doing X and they're achieving Y, if I do X, I'm probably going to do some percentage of Y as well. I might be lower, I might be higher, I might be right at it, just depending on the situation. So I do look at that, but why limit yourself with a artificial, number, an artificial place to stop at, to arrive at? I don't know. It's just a place in the road to me on the journey. It really is, whatever your arriving is, but I don't know. That probably wasn't the answer you were looking for. My apologies, but it was a true answer. Kelly jumped into reselling clothing without enough brand knowledge. I reset and learned this year. I'm killing it. Yep, there you go. I mean, you didn't let that setback define you. You went in another direction and said, well, I'm going to put more. I see where my shortcomings were and where I could have done a better job preparing. And now you did, and you're having better results. That's exactly what it is. Euro says you're forever nomadic. Yeah, right? I mean, I don't know. It's so hard to see the future. I don't know that it really is even worth it to, I mean, you can have optimism about the future being great or pessimism about it being terrible in this business, but I don't know that it really even makes sense to focus on it too much. Because the future is happening like every second, you're getting another second, another minute, another hour, and you're doing it. Like there's right now, and it's very hard to plan. Let me back up. It's very hard to manipulate tomorrow into what you want it to be. So you put yourself in a position to get good results over and over and over. You put yourself in a position to climb higher and higher, and then it goes where it goes. I don't know that you can, you control that. I mean, all this could go away for us tomorrow. Whatever platform you're selling on could close up shop. What are you gonna do? You gotta do something different. You're just gonna, you can sit there and cry about it for a while, but ultimately, after you're done with that, all those questions are still gonna be there and need to be answered. So it's like, why even worry about what's gonna happen with a lot of this stuff? It's just wasted energy. I don't like living in the past, and I don't like worrying about the future. That's the way I'm trying to live my life. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a good solution for me. Let's see. Cooper says, selling anything. Mistake number one is selling anything that sells for under $100. A car part that Takes the same time to list as a Tommy Bahama shirt. One sells for 125. The shirt sells for 20 to 45. Yeah. I think that's true. And I don't know, and $100 might not be the magic number, Cooper. I mean, it's the number, our Cooper, that's the number for you, which I totally respect. But whatever that, you could say to yourself, it's like, I'm just not going to spend time listing and selling things that don't make me much money. I don't know why we buy into this theory that a higher dollar item won't sell as fast as a lower dollar item. I would argue, lower dollar items maybe have more overall sales velocity. They tend to also have more competition, and they certainly have lower profit dollars per item. There's no doubt about that. So I don't know that it's always a strict apples to apples comparison there. I mean, is a $100 item 10 times harder to sell than a $10 item? And will you make, 1/10 of the profit on a $10 item versus, 10/10 of the profit on a $100? I don't know that either. I don't know that it's a strict, straight comparison, but I think a lot of people get caught up in that mindset. They're trying to apply like some sort of logic and reasoning to it that maybe doesn't exist because it sounds good. And it's certainly, there's certainly more of certain items at certain price tiers, that's for sure. But that doesn't mean that you should be there selling those. You could argue that means you shouldn't be. I mean, it means there's a market, but unless you have a way to get those items quickly and get them listed and get them cheaply enough and can scale that with all the things we were talking about, I don't know why you would do that. And because that's what I found with jeans. There's a huge jeans market on eBay. A couple million listings at any one time. And there's a lot of jeans that sell in a given day, a given week, a given month. And I thought, getting a percentage of that would be a great business model. But I realized as I kept going up the ladder that to get more and more of that market required exponentially more time to be put in and energy and capital to some degree. The capital wasn't really the constraint. It was really the time and energy to do it, honestly. And then eventually it'd be capital too, because you'd have to have help. You couldn't do it all alone. And I just realized at some point, like, that doesn't really make sense to me to go to that level. And I think there's a lot of items out there like that. Lady Liberty likes to know 6 or so categories extremely well. So if something isn't available in one, it will be in another. Makes sense. I mean, you've narrowed it down to like 6 categories. That's a reasonable amount. I think a lot of people could probably manage, being fairly knowledgeable in those 6 categories. I love your comment, R. Cooper. People need running cars more than a vacation shirt. True. And they can wear their shirt while they're in their running car. There you go. Let's see. Someone has to sell the clothes on eBay. That's true. Someone does, Beth, but I don't think it's going to be me. But I appreciate, and I've got, lots of friends who are in that business. I was talking about this with another reseller, and it's not a big secret the other day. And I do know a lot of people who are clothing resellers on eBay. And some of them have, 6-figure businesses in clothing. But to this point, I don't know any of them that are, quote unquote, what I would describe as killing it. They may be doing the sales volume, but they've had to scale their business with employees and outsourcing to the point where, they're making decent money, but I don't know that I would classify it as absolutely killing it. Truth be told, I would rather have a business model where I can scale it myself and kill it, whatever killing it means to me. And I don't know how you guys feel about that. If I add in other resources and people, I want to be able to kill it times some multiple, right? Kill it times 2x or 3x or 4x, great. But I want a business model that I alone, with me, myself, can do enough, can put enough time and energy and capital to make it really, really worthwhile. I don't know that with pre-owned clothing that many people, if any, can do that. I think it's very, very difficult. I think you have to have an exceptional set of circumstances that most people are not going to have. You have to have an exceptional personality and drive and energy and setup and ability. I just don't think most people are there. And that's not a knock on anyone. It's just the nature of that model is what's so challenging. The profit margins and so on, and the profit dollars per item. It's just hard to move enough items in a short enough period of time with the amount of energy you have to put into it. That's what's so challenging for so many people. But that's my opinion, and I could be wrong, as I have been many times. Rob says it's a 10x harder to find items that sell for 100 than $10. Took me years to find items that can sell north of $100 consistently. You should look at textbooks, Rob, on Amazon. There are pre-owned textbooks that sell over $100. And they're not as hard to find. I don't think they're 10 times as hard to find as just a book that would sell for $10. But it's tough to really put a number on it. That's the problem. Like, to say it's 10x harder, how do you even measure that? Like, how do you, I mean, you know, are we really going to take the time to say, well, I'm going to take the next 6 months and source this type of item, the next 6 months and source this type, and calculate all the time and the sales? And I mean, nobody does that. But it's kind of what people believe because they want to make sense out of the math, which I get, but I don't know that it's really true. So that's my take on it. I'm only impressed if it's a 6-figure net income, not gross. LOL. Euro Extreme, I couldn't agree. I'm impressed below 6 figures, but then I would be interested to see if there was a measurable number of people out there making 6 figures in net income on pre-owned clothing by themselves. No other help. I don't think that's a big number. I think that's a really small percentage of people that can do that. Just from the time, just when you do the math of how many items you have to sell, that's the problem. Because with pre-owned clothing, you know, your average selling price is not that high. So you got to move tremendous volume. Even if you're making a great return on investment, you're just not making an actual lot of dollars per item sold. So, you know, to net $100,000 by yourself with pre-owned clothing, no other help, not impossible, but I think it's really difficult, really difficult. But that's my take, and maybe there's a whole big slew of people out there doing it. People don't typically share what they make. People don't typically share their tax returns on YouTube. So, you know, and I'm not going to share mine either, and I don't think anybody should. You know, you can keep whatever you want to keep private. People don't have a right to know everything. I would rather have inventory that increases in value over time. I don't think clothes do that. No, they don't. They don't increase over time. You could argue they decrease in most cases. With new clothes, you can cross-promote on Amazon and Joe Lister very easily. That's true. Reseller niche, you're right. I haven't used Joe Lister much, but I do know a little bit about it. Prof, you consider drop shipping? I've considered it, Connie, but I've never gone down that alley. I've never gone down that road very far, so I just don't know much about it. Let's see. Just price everything at $100 and wait. I like that, the seam store. That's great. Prof, when you have me on as a guest, I can explain better. Yeah, we need to start up a guest series. It's going to be a little challenging because we got these 2 trips coming up in June and July. And they're going to take that's going to take like 2 weeks. Plus, we have to prepare some stuff for one of those trips. Man, it's just, the next couple months are going to be insane, which I guess they're always insane. Plus, I'm doing, you know, I'm going to be starting my first book shipment today, guys. That's pretty exciting. And I'm going to track it, and I'm planning to share the results. So I'll just share the sheet that I downloaded. I showed it the other day on the show, I think. And, you know, you guys can follow along. If you find value in it, great. If you don't, that's okay too. I just think you need to do something, evaluate it, get and experience that category, evolve from there. You can't do it overnight. Totally agree. Totally agree, Lady Liberty. Well said. It's so hard to scale on eBay compared to Amazon. I totally agree, James. It's so difficult compared to Amazon in most cases. No way I could pull 6 figures with clothing, Kelly says. Yeah, look, and 6 figures is not some magic number. It's not like, oh, $100,000, I'm rich. I mean, you're not. But it's a great benchmark to start at to say, well, all right, could be really profitable for a lot of people in most areas of the country. You know, if you were single and making $100,000 in net profit from your eBay business in most places in the country, not in some big cities, you would be doing very well. You would be doing better than the median income, you know, here in the United States. There's still areas where that would not be exceptional, like San Francisco or Boston or Washington, D.C., that if you lived, it's just a higher cost of living in those areas, New York City. But there's plenty of places where that would be really well. So it's a nice place to start, but it doesn't tell us everything. Any YouTube channels for FBA you can recommend? I guess it depends on what you're selling. I feel like the YouTube FBA channels are a little different than the eBay ones. So I'm probably, Brian, I'll try to get back to you on that. I am the worst about watching other people's channels. So I'll try to get a little better about that and see if I can figure out a few over the next few weeks. I don't think clothing from Goodwill outlets is the way to go if your goal is to make 100,000 net per year. Could not agree more, Amazon seller. I don't know that it's, for one person, I just don't think it's possible. I mean, I don't want to say it's impossible, really. That's probably too strong. But I think it's so improbable, it's not worth even shooting for. I mean, again, and this is not to knock anybody. It's not at all. It's just the reality of the math behind it. You know, that's the problem. Lots of good comments here. James, that's an amazing comment. Ex-wife lawyer could be watching. I make $0 a year. That's great. I will vouch, James, for your $0 a year, even though I personally have no knowledge of it, so I really can't vouch for it. So never mind. But I'm sure James is telling the truth. If you were single and doing 6 figures on eBay, you're probably single because you stare at your PC 24/7. Fair point, Kelly. That's great. These are amazing comments. Jungle Scout videos are good. Yeah, and I like this guy for books, for FBA. I've watched some of Reezy's stuff. I think probably some of you guys know who Reezy Resells is. He sold a lot of books on Amazon FBA. Caleb Roth is the book flipper. I think he actually is the book flipper on YouTube, and he has the bookflipper.com. I really like Caleb's mind and the metric approach. He has a amazing spreadsheet for tracking book sales and so on. And that's high praise coming from me, because you guys know how I feel about spreadsheets. It is really good. I haven't downloaded it yet because I just started this book selling game, and it's not a cheap spreadsheet. It's about 170 bucks one time, but man, that thing is amazing. He really put a lot of time and energy into that. So Caleb Roth, the book flipper, he is really good. If you want to watch somebody in terms of like book selling and just tracking your business and knowing your numbers, he's excellent. He really is good. I haven't met him. I've had like one little brief conversation with him on Facebook, but just from what I've seen and just the way he thinks about business and the math behind it, I mean, if you want to scale a business and you want to understand your numbers, I don't care if you're selling books or not. Like, the concepts he talks about are spot on. Like, he is all over it. So big fan of Caleb Roth, no doubt. Selling books FBA in Charlotte is equally improbable to make 100K. Yeah, you're probably right, Mike. I don't know that. I can tell you what to make 100K in books would be. roughly. And this is going by one of Caleb's spreadsheets. Where could you get at 100K? Let's see if you listed 100. So if you listed 150 books per week, does that get you there? Not in 3 years. Let's say 250. Okay, so his spreadsheet says, and I'll actually share it with you guys. That's a great question, talking about books. I'm going to share this with you guys real quick. I wasn't intending to do this, but why not, right? So this is Caleb's spreadsheet has that you can use to put in sorting results. I'm going to blow this up a little. If you list 250 books per week with an average buy cost of $1.50, now that's a lot of books to list on Amazon per week. That means you've gone through and scanned, you know, maybe 30 or 40 times that, which is quite a few. So, and they have an average selling price of $20 with a turn rate of 4% per week. By the end of year 2, your cash flow should be around $112,000 for the year. So possibles. First year is about $61,000. You might even have a max sale of $5,000 in 1 week with a max profit of $2,300. So that's kind of as you get near the end. And he kind of builds out the numbers here really, really well. And that's what I love about the way he does this. This is sales and profit. So this is sales up here, the big orange line, and the profit line's over here. So you can see, like, in these weeks, week number 104, which is 2 years, 103, $2,200 a week, $2,200 a week. So these are like basically on pace to be $100,000. But you would need, and you could grow slower than this, and you know, you can play with these numbers and change these to whatever you want. If you were paying $1 to each person, this would take longer because you would be paying out money for, you'd be paying out $250 a week in listing cost, basically, or sourcing cost. So there you go. So if you listed 250 bucks a week for, you know, 104 weeks, your average selling price is 20 bucks and your turn rate is 4%, you'd probably net somewhere over $100,000 in year 2 with books. I don't know if that's good or not. I mean, is that doable for people? 250 books a week to pull? I don't know. I mean, 250 books a week, that's not a crazy number. 1,000 books a month. To pull 1,000 books is not, I mean, it's a big number. Like, we had 3,000 books in our garage a couple years ago. And so I'm thinking of a third of that. And we didn't, not all those we sent in, but we sent in like 240 of them, maybe 50 of the 3,300. We sold more in a couple bulk lots after that. We sold about 100 of them in one smaller lot, and then we sold the remaining nearly 3,000 into one other person, the rest of them. And I think with those books, so we did 1% would be 33. Yeah, so we sent in about 7 or 8% of them, which was really high. Like, you normally wouldn't send in quite that many. Probably sent in a few that, you know, were probably questionable looking back. My real send-in rate probably should have been more like 4 or 5%. But it didn't take me that long, guys. It took me 40 hours, and that counts the time to go get them, to get those books and process all 3,300 of them, and to send them in, and to send in 200, and it was 230 or 40 or 50. I can't remember the exact number, somewhere around there, to sell about 80 or 100 of them locally, and then to sell the remaining nearly 3,000 in one big bulk locally. So 40 hours to process 1,000 books, or to process 3,000 books. It's not a crazy number. So anyway, you would need a book source. Yeah, and I get it. I buy bulk records books around 100 to 2,000 each purchase after grading. You can average list 70 an item. Yeah, I mean, to send in 1,000 books, you know, that's not like sending in 1,000 books to list on Amazon is nowhere near the time and energy that you would use to list 1,000 items on eBay. 1,000 one-off items. That would take you a long time. I don't care how fast you are. Even if you're doing 100 a day, that's 10 days of just listing 100. And plus you had to go source them, go through them. I mean, it would take you, you know, a couple weeks in most cases, even really going after it hard to do that. Books would take you nowhere near that amount of time. Nowhere near. So it's just a whole different story. And I don't know, $100,000 is not some magic number, but you know, it's a good point for a lot of people. I've listed 1,000 a day, but I'm fulfilled by merchant. That's great, James. Do you find that listing fulfilled by merchant is, I guess it would be a little faster than FBA, right? I could be wrong about that. I'm definitely not any expert on it, but Greg Murphy, Busproof, he has a huge retail store and warehouse up there in Ohio, 60,000 square feet. I think you're right. He offers tremendous knowledge about book selling, and he's been highly successful with it, buying books by the tractor trailer load, which is crazy when you think about it. But excuse me, I'm sorry. Which scanner do you recommend? I've been using my phone for now, Gabriella, so I'm probably not the best person to ask about a scanner. You know, I hear the KDC and Opticons are the two major ones. Apparently there's a new one that just came out recently. That's cheaper, new than either of those two. So, externally faster, James says, for fulfilled by merchant. Yeah. I drive 5,000 miles per month sourcing books in the Carolinas. Whew, that's a lot of miles, Mike. And can only send in about 700 books a month. Yeah. I think that, you know, I don't know where you're going to get those, but I think the the thrift store approach and so on is questionable for books. Just in my limited knowledge, it doesn't seem like you'd be able to turn the volume. So we should talk offline, Mike. Send me a message on Facebook. You can find me there. You know, we have the Rebels for Reselling group, or you can find me under, you know, lots of places on Facebook. The only issue is to get the volume to buy. Yep. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. Be sure to like and share this video, and then look for the little button up here. It should be up here that will tell you what to watch next. So there'll be a video you can watch next here on the channel, and hopefully you'll get some value out of that too. As always, I really enjoyed this discussion today. Hopefully we'll get Kaaren back Wednesday again, and I will see you guys really soon. This has been Prof Sales saying good sales to you.